Betty Kilby was just 14 years old in 1959 when she was one of 21 black students who integrated her local high school in Virginia. She and the other black students faced harrowing resistance.
As part of our series, A Defining Decision, Brown versus Board of Education, ABC's senior national correspondent, Steve Osunsami, introduces us to her and shows us the courageous steps she took in the name of equality.
They told us not to look at the people, not to look at the crowd, to remain focused on going up the hill.
Betty Kilby says she remembers everything about this day in February, nearly 70 years ago, outside Warren County High School in Northern Virginia. How tightly she held onto her clipboard, how cold it was, how cold they were.
The memory of going up that hill will never cease from my brain.
Because you could hear the racial slurs.
I could hear the racial slurs. We just thought that that would be the day that we died.
On their radios and televisions at home, they heard parents and governors say that what they were doing was wrong.
Integration, mixing of the races in great areas of Virginia would absolutely destroy public education.
Today, many people think that the U.S. Supreme Court decision that integrated American schools was just one case out of Topeka, Kansas. But Brown versus Board of Education was actually a combination of fights from across the country, including one from Virginia. Today, the surviving students of what was Moton High School, a segregated black school in Northern Virginia, are celebrating their walkout that led to one of the lawsuits here.
We had no library, we had no cafeteria, we had no science lab. Also, we had hand-me-down books from the white school, and they were tattered and torn. So what happened is we went out on a strike for 2 weeks.
All these years later, and their story has caught the attention of a group of talented Virginia high school students who produced this award-winning documentary.
I get up in the morning and I say, oh, why do I have to go? Yeah, it was awful.
The teenagers sat down with the change makers, the black and white former students, old enough to be their grandparents, who they now call their friends.
After those first interviews was when we really felt that passion, when we could put a face to the story and a friendship to the stories that we were hearing.
It's one thing to read about history in a textbook, but when that person who made that history is standing in front of you, that really just gives you a deeper passion to share that history.
They learned how the black students stayed safe by scheduling their classes so they could walk together in between periods. And they heard how the principals and teachers would refuse to even say hello. Betty Kilby shared with them a difficult story, how at her high school, in her senior year, when there were only 5 black students left, she says she was walking alone, and a group of white students pulled her into a room.
And as I crossed the auditorium one day, I was grabbed. And I was raped. And at that point, I begged God to take me home.
And you, of course, could not trust that you could talk to anyone about this at the time.
If I had told my father, he'd have probably tried to kill somebody. I tell people that if I had died that day as we walked up the hill, that it would have been more humane than the years that followed. Children paid the price. I paid the price. I gave up my innocence to integrate these schools. Not because we wanted better, we wanted the same.
The old black high school where the students walked out in the 1950s is now a museum. And the students today who told their story with this project are headed to college. For them, they say this isn't just another court case anymore.
We were entrusted with really powerful and personal narratives, and we got the opportunity to share that, but it doesn't end there.
We can't forget the lessons of the past if we want to make change for the future.
That's a good point. The pain, the heartache, the trauma is still, relevant today.
The sacrifice that those people made, the children made.
Miss Betty, thank you. And again, our many thanks to Steve for that report as well.